Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling a concept that can truly revolutionize how you approach, well, pretty much everything.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. We're diving into the 80-20 rule.
That's right, and we'll be using 80/20 Your Life by Damon Zahariades as our guide. This book is all about pinpointing those high-impact actions and habits. The ones that actually move the needle.
You know, what I love about this book is that it's not just for business. We're talking about applying the 80-20 rule to your relationships, health, even how you clean your house.
Yeah, it's more than just a productivity hack. It's a total mindset shift.
So before we get too far, let's quickly recap what this whole 80-20 thing is about.
The 80/20 rule, sometimes called the Pareto Principle, basically states that 80% of our results actually come from just 20% of our efforts.
Okay, think about your to-do list. It's probably a mile long.
Right, but only a handful of those tasks are really crucial to reaching your goals.
The 80-20 rule helps you identify and prioritize those activities.
Imagine all the time you spend on things that don't really matter.
Oh, I don't even want to think about it.
Think about what you could achieve if you reclaimed that time and energy.
That sounds amazing, but how do we even know what to focus on? How do we find that magical 20%?
Well, Zahariades shares a story in the book about ignoring most of his emails.
Really? Ignoring emails?
Yeah, and guess what? No negative consequences.
That's both terrifying and liberating at the same time. But how did he know which ones to actually open?
He had a system. He focused only on emails from certain people, like key clients, or the ones that needed immediate action.
So it's about recognizing what truly deserves your attention.
And learning to let go of the rest.
Now, Zaharias actually lays out 10 reasons why this whole 80-20 mindset is so valuable.
Yeah, it's a pretty compelling list.
But let's focus on a few key benefits, the ones that will really hit home for our listeners. You know, the ones who are all about learning and efficiency.
Sounds good. So first up, improved time management. Think of the 80/20 rule like a laser, helping you cut through the clutter and zero in on the tasks that truly matter. You'll get more done in less time because you're not wasting energy on low-impact stuff.
Talk about a game changer for anyone feeling overwhelmed by their to-do list.
Absolutely. And it ties directly into the next benefit, enhanced focus.
I mean, we're all bombarded with distractions these days. Emails, social media, it never ends.
Exactly. But by applying the 80/20 principle, you can actually identify that essential 20% that deserves your full attention.
So you're not scattered and pulled in a million directions.
Right. You can be more effective, even happier, because you're not constantly feeling stressed and overwhelmed.
It's all starting to sound pretty good. Okay, what about this one? Greater creativity. How does the 80-20 rule boost creativity?
Well, think about it. When you're bogged down by a million little things, you're stressed, your mind's racing, it's hard to be creative, right?
Yeah, it's like your brain is too cluttered to come up with anything new.
Exactly. The 80/20 rule helps you shed those worries, those tasks that aren't serving you, freeing up mental space for new ideas. Zahariades actually talks about how realizing most of his worries never came to pass helped him reduce his stress significantly.
It's funny how we get so caught up in those worries. Okay, last but certainly not least, the 80-20 principle can actually lead to more rewarding relationships.
This is huge. A lot of us maintain relationships that honestly don't bring us joy. We spread ourselves too thin, trying to be everything to everyone.
It's true, we can get so caught up in trying to please everyone.
By focusing on the relationships that truly nourish us, we can invest our time and energy where it really matters.
Building stronger bonds and, let's face it, being happier.
Exactly.
Okay, we've talked about why this mindset is so valuable, but how do we actually apply it? Where do we even begin?
That's the cool thing about this principle. It's versatility. You can apply it to almost everything. Your career, your home life, finances, even fitness.
All right, well, since our listeners love structure, let's break it down, one area at a time, starting with everyone's favorite, work.
All right, so let's say you're on the job hunt. The 80/20 rule can actually make that whole process way less overwhelming.
Oh, I think a lot of people can appreciate that sending out applications can feel like a black hole sometimes.
Totally. So instead of just networking with everyone, Zahariades says focus on the people who can actually open doors for you.
Okay, that makes sense, but how do you even find those people?
Well, you got to do a little digging. LinkedIn, industry events, even tap into your existing network. See who you know. Ask yourself, who can give me the best insights, the best connections?
So it's about quality over quantity.
And when you do connect with these people, be a good listener. Zahariades actually recommends spending 80% of your time listening, only 20% talking about yourself.
It's funny how often we forget that people are much more likely to help you if they feel heard.
For sure. Now, once you land that dream job, let's talk about managing your time. The book has this great tip for tackling your to-do list. Instead of this giant, overwhelming list, just focus on 5 to 7 high-impact tasks each day.
So ditch the brain dump and prioritize what actually matters.
Right, the tasks that really move the needle, contributing to your goals.
Makes sense.
And that same idea, being selective, should apply to the projects you take on.
So not just saying yes to everything.
It can be tough, but choosing projects that align with your strengths, what you're interested in, that's where you'll really shine.
I bet that's hard for some people. The fear of missing out is real.
But remember, by saying no to the wrong things, you're making space to say yes to the right ones.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this works. Now, you mentioned ignoring emails earlier. Is that really possible? I mean, won't people think you're slacking off?
Well, it's not about ignoring everything. It's about being strategic. Zahariades argues that most emails don't actually need a response. He suggests creating a separate folder for anything that needs action, then setting specific times to deal with those.
So you're not constantly checking your inbox and getting sidetracked.
Exactly. You free up so much mental energy that way.
All right, let's shift gears a bit. Work is important, but a fulfilling life is about more than just your job. What about home life?
Let's talk about it. Everyone's favorite, house cleaning. The book has a really refreshing take on this. It's about embracing good enough, not striving for perfection.
So no more spending an entire weekend scrubbing every nook and cranny.
Focus on the high-traffic areas, set a time limit for each room, don't stress about every little detail.
Okay, that takes a lot of pressure off.
And that same idea, simplifying things, applies to cooking too.
Oh, tell me more about that. I'm all for making things easier in the kitchen.
Instead of trying to master every recipe out there, just focus on a few healthy dishes that you actually enjoy making. You can even meal prep, batch cook things ahead of time.
Meal prep is a lifesaver. All right, since we're on the topic of simplifying, what about decluttering?
The 80-20 rule can be a huge help with that. Think about the things you actually use, the 20% of your possessions that you really value. The rest, donate it, sell it, let it go.
So it's not about minimalism, it's about being mindful.
Exactly, keeping the things that bring you joy. All right, let's move on to relationships, because let's face it, this is an area where we all want more fulfillment.
Absolutely. So how does the 80-20 rule apply to our relationships? Especially with our loved ones. Sometimes we fall into routines. We take each other for granted.
It happens to the best of us. And Zahariades says be careful about being too reactive in those relationships, just responding to requests, going through the motions.
So we should be more intentional about how we spend time with our loved ones.
Exactly. Focus on those moments that really strengthen your bond.
Having deep conversations, really listening, putting the phones away, and being present.
Those are the things that matter. Speaking of phones, the book actually talks about creating no phone zones during family time.
Oh, I love that. It's so easy to get sucked into our phones, even when we're trying to connect with people.
It takes effort, but it's worth it. Here's another interesting tip from the book. Try to ignore 80% of the things that annoy you about your loved ones.
Wait, really? Is that even possible?
It might sound crazy, but think about it. Most of those little annoyances are totally insignificant. They don't affect the big picture.
So choose your battles wisely.
Exactly. Focus on the stuff that truly matters. You'll build stronger relationships that way.
It's funny how those little things can build up, though. Okay, what about friendships? The book talks about how a lot of us try to maintain more friendships than we can handle.
It's like social media overload. We feel this pressure to stay connected to everyone, but that can lead to surface-level interactions, and you just end up feeling overwhelmed.
So how do we apply the 80-20 rule here?
It's about identifying the friends who truly enrich your life, the 20% who really make you feel supported and inspired. Nurture those relationships, make time for those people.
Quality over quantity, just like with networking.
Right. And the book actually has a few exercises to help you figure out who those core friends are.
Oh, I'm curious about those. What kind of exercises?
One is to think about how you spend your time. Who do you naturally gravitate towards? Look for patterns in your social interactions.
So who are you genuinely excited to see?
Yeah. Another one is to think about your values, the qualities you look for in a friend. Then look at your current friendships, see if they align. It's like a compatibility check for your friendships.
I like that. Okay, compatibility is super important, especially when it comes to dating. So how does the 80-20 rule apply there?
The book is all about being selective with your dating choices.
No more endless swiping or going on dates just because.
Right. Zahariades says make a list of deal breakers, those non-negotiable things that would make a relationship a no-go.
Filter out the incompatible matches right away. I like it.
And once you're on a date, Focus on the information that really matters. Forget the small talk. Pay attention to their values, their kindness, how they treat other people.
Those are the things that actually build a strong foundation for a relationship.
Exactly. And the book also talks about being realistic with your expectations. Instead of having this long list of qualities you're looking for in a partner, just pick a few that are truly essential. Let go of the rest.
So no more chasing perfection.
Right. Focus on what truly matters. All right, let's move on to another area where a lot of people struggle, maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Zahariades talks about both diet and exercise through the 80-20 lens.
Okay, I'm ready to hear this. I think we could all use some help simplifying our approach to health and wellness.
It's about finding a sustainable approach to eating healthy. Stay to a mostly clean diet 80% of the time. Allow yourself some indulgences the other 20%.
So it's not about deprivation, it's about making healthy choices most of the time.
Exactly. Find those healthy meals you actually enjoy and can easily make.
But what about those situations where you're surrounded by temptations, like social events or restaurants?
The book has some good tips for those. At restaurants, maybe order half portions or split a meal with someone. At social events, don't be afraid to politely decline food that doesn't align with your goals.
It's about making conscious choices, not about restricting yourself entirely.
Yeah. Okay, now let's talk about exercise. A lot of people think they need to spend hours at the gym to see results, but the book challenges that idea.
Okay, tell me more. Less time, more results. That sounds good to me.
Zahariades says you can get 80% of the fitness benefits with just 20% of the effort. The key is to focus on compound exercises.
So those are the ones that work multiple muscle groups at once, like squats and lunges.
Exactly, you're getting more bang for your buck that way. And instead of trying to do everything at once, pick one fitness goal to focus on, whether it's building muscle, increasing endurance, or losing weight.
That makes sense. It's about having a clear focus.
And to save even more time, consider working out at home. You don't need a fancy gym membership. You can get a great workout with minimal equipment.
That's a good point. Working out at home is so much more convenient. I remember the book mentioned HIIT training too, right?
Yes. High-intensity interval training. It's all about short bursts of intense exercise, followed by brief recovery periods. It's super effective for burning fat and improving your cardiovascular health in a short amount of time.
So we've seen how the 80-20 rule can transform our approach to both diet and exercise. It's not about punishing ourselves. It's about finding those strategies that work for our lives.
Finding that balance between efficiency and actually enjoying the process. Speaking of efficiency, let's dive into the world of personal finance.
Okay, money. It's a topic that can feel really overwhelming, but Zahariades has some great advice for simplifying things.
He says you don't need to be a financial expert to manage your money well. The 80-20 rule can help you streamline everything.
All right, I'm all ears. Where do we start?
The first step is creating a simple budget. You don't need to track every penny, just figure out where the bulk of your money is going.
So identify those big expenses: housing, transportation, food.
Exactly. Once you know where your money's going, you can make smarter decisions about how to spend it.
No more wondering where your paycheck went.
And make sure you're tracking both fixed and variable expenses, those predictable bills versus the more fluctuating costs.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about saving for big purchases?
To avoid going into debt, Zahariades recommends setting aside a certain amount each month specifically for those planned expenses.
So it's built into your budget from the start. I like that. It's proactive.
Right. Now, investing can be a bit intimidating for some people, but the book encourages us to simplify our approach.
Okay, less intimidating, more manageable. I'm all for that.
Focus on a few key metrics when you're looking at stocks. Things like the price-to-earnings ratio, return on equity. Don't get bogged down by all the financial jargon.
Keep it simple.
And Zahariades is a big fan of mutual funds. They're a great way to diversify your investments without having to constantly watch the market.
Yeah, that sounds a lot less stressful. I remember the book mentioned REITs too, right? For people interested in real estate.
Yes. Real estate investment trusts, they let you invest in real estate without the hassle of actually owning property.
So it's like passive real estate investing. Okay, last but not least, let's talk credit cards.
Keep it simple. Get rid of any cards you don't need. Stick with one or two that have the best rewards and interest rates.
Streamlining, just like with everything else.
And when you're choosing those cards, think about the rewards that actually benefit you, the ones that align with your spending habits.
Make those rewards work for you.
And if you have multiple credit card balances, consolidate them onto one card with a lower interest rate.
So you're simplifying your debt management too. It's amazing how this all ties together. By applying the 80-20 rule to our finances, we can create a system that actually works for us.
It's about taking control without feeling overwhelmed.
Making those smart choices that support our financial goals. Now, let's shift gears one last time and explore how this principle applies to learning, something we do throughout our lives.
Whether you're in school, learning new skills, or just trying to expand your knowledge, the 80-20 rule can help you get the most out of your efforts.
This is a big one for our listeners. They're all about learning and personal growth.
It's not about trying to learn everything. It's about finding that crucial information, the key takeaways that will really make a difference.
So be strategic with your learning choices.
And Zahariades recommends using time chunks for more focused studying. Instead of those marathon study sessions, break it down into manageable intervals like 30, 60 minutes, then take a break.
Give your brain a chance to rest and absorb the information.
Exactly. And when you're working on assignments, prioritize, delegate if you can. Focus on the tasks that will have the biggest impact on the final outcome.
So even with learning, it's about applying that 80-20 mindset to get the most out of your efforts.
And here's a really important mindset shift that can help you not just with learning, but with life in general. Be willing to accept less than perfect results.
So strive for excellence, not perfection.
The 80-20 rule reminds us that getting 80% of the way there is often good enough, especially when you're limited on time and resources.
Okay, I like that. Now, the book also talks about cultivating a growth mindset, right?
Absolutely. A growth mindset is crucial for embracing the 80-20 rule. It's believing that you can always learn and grow, that your abilities aren't fixed.
So be open to challenges. See setbacks as learning opportunities.
And a big part of that is being open to feedback, even when it's tough to hear.
Don't get defensive. See constructive criticism as a way to improve.
It's not a personal attack. It's a chance to grow.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, from our careers to our relationships, health, finances, even learning. And it's amazing how this one principle can be applied to so many different areas.
It really shows how interconnected everything is.
Now, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, I want to hear from you, our listeners. What's resonating with you so far? What's standing out is particularly helpful? So we've talked about how the 80-20 rule can help us in our personal lives. But what about for those of us with that entrepreneurial spirit, running our own businesses?
Oh, yeah. Zahariades definitely doesn't leave that out. He has a whole section on applying the 80-20 rule to small businesses, whether it's a side hustle or a full-blown company.
I'm sure our listeners would love to hear about that, so where do we start?
Well, he starts with sales and marketing, emphasizing that you need to identify your best customers, the ones who are really driving your revenue.
You mean like those loyal customers who are always coming back for more?
Exactly. They're your VIPs. And once you know who they are, Zahariades says, focus on making them happy, go above and beyond for them.
Offer them special deals, give them amazing customer service, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Happy customers are more likely to tell their friends, spread the word.
Word-of-mouth marketing is the best kind of marketing.
Totally. Now, along with focusing on your best customers, it's also important to figure out which marketing tactics are actually working for you.
So don't just try everything. See what's actually bringing in those sales.
Right. Look at your past campaigns, track your results. Where are you getting the biggest return on your investment?
That makes sense. It's a data-driven approach.
And this whole idea of focusing on what really matters, it applies to your products too.
So even if you have a lot of different products, you don't need to promote them all equally.
Exactly. Figure out which ones are actually making you the most money. Those are your stars. Streamline your offerings. Focus on what's really resonating with your customer.
Makes things a lot simpler. Okay, now what about your team? Even if you have the best business idea in the world, you need a good team to make it happen.
For sure. And Zahariades says the 80-20 rule applies here too. Identify your top performers, the ones who are really contributing to the company's success.
The ones who go above and beyond, always bringing new ideas to the table.
Those are the people you want to invest in, give them opportunities to grow, make them feel valued.
Because when your top performers are happy, everyone benefits.
Absolutely. But what about the employees who maybe aren't performing as well?
Yeah, how does the 80-20 rule apply in those situations?
Well, Zahariades has a pretty compassionate approach, he says. Talk to them, figure out what's going on. Maybe there are some roadblocks you can help them overcome.
So it's about supporting your team, giving them what they need to succeed.
Right, and to free up their time and energy for those high-impact tasks, think about outsourcing some of those low-value things that can eat up a lot of time.
Like administrative stuff, things that can easily be done by someone else.
Exactly. Let your core team focus on what really matters.
That makes sense. Now, as your business grows, you're bound to get a lot of opportunities thrown your way, new partnerships, product ideas, you name it.
It can be really tempting to say yes to everything, but Zahariades says be careful, don't get distracted.
It's easy to lose sight of your goals when you're chasing shiny objects.
Use the 80-20 rule to evaluate each opportunity. Make sure it aligns with your overall vision for the business.
So be selective, even when it's tough to say no.
Because those opportunities might seem amazing at first, but they can turn into time sucks that pull you away from what you're really trying to build.
It all comes back to focusing on the 20% that truly matters.
Mm.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into the 80-20 rule, it's clear that this is about so much more than just productivity hacks.
It's about realizing that our time and energy are limited. We can't do everything, so we need to make those choices carefully.
It's a way of thinking that can help us be more intentional, more focused, and ultimately more fulfilled in all areas of our lives.
And remember, the 80-20 rule isn't about finding some rigid formula. It's about experimenting, figuring out what works best for you.
So as you go about your day-to-day, think about where you can apply this principle. What's that 20% that's holding you back? And what's that 20% that could unlock amazing results?
The answers might surprise you.
And that's it for this deep dive into the 80-20 rule. We hope you found it helpful. And remember, happy 80-20ing.